Hello there. Are you sure you're in the right place? See the name on the door? This podcast is Spine Chillers and Serial Killers. Surely you don't want to come in here. You do. Well, I must warn you that things are pretty adult in here. Absolutely no children are allowed. Obscene language, shocking and horrendous stories to chill you to your core, and terrifying tales that'll keep you up at night. The ladies inside aren't quite right. Lovely and hilarious, but very strange. Still want in, do you? Well, you'll get what you're here for. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to Spine Chillers and Serial Killers. I'm Becky.
I'm Emma.
And I'm Tash. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hello.
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 You all right?
All right, my mucker.
Why do we do this every time?
I've said some really weird things today, like Toodle Pip and Cheerio.
Oh.
What have you been watching?
I don't know. I said to somebody today, so one of my colleagues took their coffee over and then I followed close behind with their food, like literally. And I said, oh, we're like buses today, aren't they? And they were like, oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
And you know me like, oh, why did I say that?
I have no idea why I just called you my mucker, because I have literally never said that ever in my life before.
I enjoyed it.
Well, there we go. You know, just... The camera makes me panic.
Do you remember that time that you said sound and cringed and died?
Yeah.
You were like, yeah, sound. You know what I tried the other day? I tried to say word.
To who?
I said it to the kids. I was like, well, I'll just try this out. And then I was like, ugh, that sounded horrible coming out of my face.
I don't think anyone's saying that anymore either.
Word. I think I say that a lot. I think I do say that.
I think it was in a sarcastic way. Me and Caitlin were like having a play argument where you know when you're like, well, I don't think so, and I say this. And I was like, yeah, word.
So I just need to say that one of my little dogs has had his bollocks chopped off. So he's in the cone of shame. And he's in my recording room with me, so hopefully he doesn't move around too much because it's that horrible plastic scraping noise. Also, I had to say the word scrotum to the vet, and I got quite embarrassed about that.
What's scrotum in French?
Scrotum.
Oh, why does it sound worse?
Why did you have to say scrotum?
Because his scrotum is really, really swollen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Do they still have a scrotum once it's been chopped out?
Yeah. So basically, because now I've had 3 of my little rescue puppies castrated over the past few months, basically they just take the testicles out of the scrotum, but the scrotum stays. But it then bruises quite badly, and because the body doesn't like having anything taken out or empty spaces, it then fills up with like liquid. So I actually asked the vet, have you forgotten one? Because it looked like he's got one little testy left, but it's actually just fluid and swelling on his scrotum.
Great.
Oh, welcome to the podcast.
Yes.
Took us, what,
Welcome
30
back,
seconds
everybody.
to get to scrotes?
I think informative, though, so...
If ever you get your dog castrated and you see a swollen, black scrotum, normal. It's normal. It'll pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you girls got anything to add before we move on to, That's Gross?
No.
No.
No. Should we do Let's Gross?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, there's a jingle.
This is so gross. Oh. Oh, I feel really sick. That's a no from me. It's disgusting. Oh. So, in the nature of keeping things fair,
Yes.
I did some research on gross things women do that men have found gross.
I can tell you a few things that women do.
So, one was she shat out a huge steamer into a hole on the beach and then buried it. That was an awful spring break.
Oh, but when you gotta go, you gotta go. I wouldn't blame a man
I don't
for
think
doing
we
that.
should poo on the beach. That's not okay.
No, pooing on the beach is not okay. And if she's, like, pooed out a massive turd, she's obviously not got, like, uncontrollable diarrhea or anything.
Yeah.
So,
You've dug a hole, babe. You've had time to think about that poo.
yeah. Yeah, that's not okay. That's not okay. We're not...
That's not okay. That's not okay for multiple reasons. One, let's not defecate in public.
Absolutely. That's fucking
And
disgusting.
on a beach where kids are going to dig. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
gross.
Worrying me, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it's not cool. So that is disgusting.
Gross.
So disgusting.
Yeah. Next one. She vomited all over me and my carpet, bed, floor, wall. It hit me right in the eyes too.
Ooh.
Nasty.
Yeah, but she can't help that.
I think she was probably drunk.
Well, even so, she couldn't help it.
I mean, it is a bit gross though.
I mean, it's
I wouldn't be-
absolutely vile.
Yeah.
But I remember being bent over a bucket with Becky, stroking my hair while I was vomiting, and she's going, "Oh, your hair's so nice. Your hair's so pretty." We were both completely fucked.
I remember with Becky, it's always Becky. She's the enabler. I remember we drunk that black vodka. Do you remember that?
I was thinking about the black vodka the other day. So then when we were sick, wasn't it violet?
It was black. It was like a weird colour, and we were like, "Are we gonna die? I'm vomiting tar." Oh, it's so
I'm a witch.
I too have held, I think Becky's held a bucket for me while stroking my hair, and I have held lovingly a plastic bag for Becky while she was vomiting.
Oh.
And I don't know if you'll let me say what you were saying because it was so funny.
Was it when I was talking about penises?
You were talking about... Yeah, you were talking about sex.
That's surprising.
I don't talk about that.
Oh, go on, let me say it. It's so funny.
Go on then.
So I've got Becky's bag open while she vomits. She's completely hammered, bless her. She's crying, she's getting that emotional drunkenness that we've all had. We all do.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have a good drunk cry? And she goes, "When I don't have sex enough, my vagina feels weird."
No, I didn't say. I don't remember saying that.
No, because you're absolutely fucking hammered, but it is ingrained into my brain. It was so funny.
Oh, well. Oh, this face couldn't have ever said that. Too
No,
innocent.
far too pure.
Oh,
Ready for the
dear.
next one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My point to all that was, as drunk as we've all been, nobody has ever vomited in somebody else's face, right?
No. I did. I was very young. And actually, one of the first times I met you, Emma,
Yeah.
if not the first time, went home with a man. Not in that way. I was very, very young.
Yeah.
He took my friend and I home, and I vomited in the back of his car into my handbag. And do you remember that? He was a lot older than me and my friend, and he was driving us home to make sure we got home
Was it Brian
safely.
G?
It was Brian. No, it wasn't Brian G. It was Darren. Was Brian G the one that looked like a vampire?
Yeah.
No, it was Darren. It was he was a copper.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
So sexy
He was
as well.
very hot, very hot.
But But also at this time, I think I was about 15.
Yeah.
I was very, very young.
Yeah.
And he drove my friend and I, who was only about 18 months older than me. He drove us home. And yeah, I vomited in the back of his car. And I believe he kissed her in my kitchen.
He kissed?
Well, my mum's kitchen.
He kissed what?
He kissed her.
Oh, your friend?
My friend, yeah.
A copper?
A copper.
You-
That had taken 2 minors home.
There's a lot to...
Was that the copper that said to our friend, hey, come and have sex with me in my car? Was that him?
Probably.
Yeah. That wasn't me. I wasn't
Probably.
the friend. Wasn't me.
It wasn't either
me.
of you.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't.
Could you
Yeah.
do it on the counter?
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Very, very strange. I mean, you do strange things when
Shagging in
you're
a
teenagers,
police
don't
car?
you? But
No.
that was
Yeah.
that was weird.
When you think back, we got ourselves in so many odd situations. Like
Especially living in rural France.
you were in, so 2 minors, in a copper's car, you puke in his car.
pissed, absolutely shit-faced.
Absolutely shit-faced. And then he makes out with your friend.
Yeah,
It's-
in my mum's kitchen.
In your, it's
weird.
all, and it's a bit
It's
wrong.
so weird.
How old was he?
It's really. Well, he was a copper and drove, so he would have, I reckon, like 20,
Early 20s,
25, yeah.
Very wrong. But at the time, you don't think.
No. And when I was 15, 16, with the same friend, quite a few times we went out with men in their early 20s, and I just look at men in their early 20s like, what the hell were you doing with 16-year-olds?
I think it also was because we were English. There was the opinion that we were like easy because we were English.
We do have that reputation in
but
France.
like, we were just like party, like fun time, like fun girls.
Yeah.
Like we just wanted to have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think the way that English people enjoy their weekends party is we just get really drunk,
Yeah.
and we are probably like really flirty.
Absolutely.
But I definitely remember like several situations, like we'd get lifted home by boys, we'd like get them to drive us home, and then like we'd say we were just getting like a bag so we could stay out for the night, because they'd be like, oh, come back to us, we're having a house party. And then we just wouldn't come out the house. Like, they're out of my house, they're at our house, and we're just not coming out. Like, how wild, like, they know where we live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just mad, isn't it? Like, the things.
The situations we got ourselves
You used to like
into.
hitchhike, but there is an element of, is everybody did know everybody in those areas.
yeah.
How many
So,
murder
like-
stories have I told you where it's a small
I mean,
town?
yeah,
Where
yeah.
and I'm
100%.
sorry, Tash, but your smile lights up a room. So it could have happened.
It could have happened.
Your smile
I'm
lights
also
up
a
a
really
room.
gobby cow, so I don't think it would happen to
Oh.
me. I'm quite gobby. I will have ya.
I'll have ya.
There's a certain part of drunk that you get where you get someone annoys you, it's usually a man, but you're so annoyed that you laugh. But you know when you're getting annoyed, more and more annoyed, and you're like, I'm gonna, and you're just laughing hysterically, so funny. There's a point of no return.
I don't do that anymore because I'm a grown, mature adult.
And we've all got little girls, which is worrying. Which is worrying.
It's really worrying. It does worry me.
I'm like, please don't be like your mama.
Hopefully there won't be. Anyway, back to that's gross.
Yeah.
She fired off a huge ass snot rocket whilst cycling. I mean, it was big enough to make a splat on the ground.
Oh, but men do that. It's also, it's men that do it more often. You see football players going,
I mean, it's disgusting. If
It is
I saw
disgusting.
someone doing that, I would gag.
That is gross.
yeah,
It's
rank.
fucking gross.
Man or woman, it's disgusting.
Anyone.
Please.
Gross.
Don't
Or
do
either or whatever. Just don't do that. No snot on the sidewalk, please.
No.
She squatted in the middle of a pedestrian street and did a massive piss on a night out.
Squatted. All right. Oh yeah, girl. I don't know. I do that. I've weed in the street.
In my younger days, I'm pretty sure I've had a pee in the street.
Definitely, 100%. I think we all have, probably together.
And men piss all over the place. I mean,
I know.
I don't know what it's like anywhere else, but in rural France, you cannot. Oh,
any time of the day. Yeah. It's not even when they're drunk.
You go out and there is a man by the side of the road taking a piss. So, fair's fair.
Yeah. Okay, it might sound minor, but once I had a sleepover over at a girl's house. We had breakfast in bed and she was sat down on the bed, breadcrumbs fell on her tits and she did nothing about it. I found it absolutely repulsive. The girl's tits were great, mind you, but I saw it as so unladylike, if that's a word. I think that's more of an ick.
That's an ick.
Yeah,
that's an ick. But this is what I mean. So this is what I have found. These are all like, yeah, probably not very ladylike, probably a bit questionable, but actually are any of them that bad?
Shitting on the beach was bad.
That's fucking gross. That's not cool.
That just seems a very weird thing to find disgusting.
But then again, yeah, like what Tash said, that sounds more like an ick, and icks are fine. Everyone's entitled to an ick. And usually you can't explain it. It's just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would brush the crumbs off my boobies, though.
I wouldn't be eating in bed.
I also wouldn't sit naked in bed eating.
I do that all the time.
What, naked?
I can't be doing the crumbs in the bed.
How do you feel about eating in the bath?
No. Oh,
Gross.
God, no. No. Only because it's an inconvenience.
I ate chocolate in the bath when I was pregnant.
My daughter eats in the bath all the time.
And I have cups of
But
tea
it really
in the
makes
bath.
me laugh. She takes fruit and vegetables up to have a little munch on when she's in the bath.
Eating grapes.
Honestly, I'm going to the bathroom after. There'll be like an apple core. There'll be some like tomato.
I'm practicing
stems.
from when I'm princess.
Honestly, I love this for her.
I wouldn't do it, not because I think it's disgusting, just because it's faffy. I've got wet hands and everything's damp and...
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? There is a thing, though, that was going around on like social media a few years ago about people eating oranges in the bath.
Okay.
Or in the shower, and it's meant to like do something to your senses. I don't know, I never tried it.
I don't like oranges.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of an orange.
Can't be doing with orange food.
I don't like orange food.
Oh, yeah.
And if Emma's it's gross would be orange, carrot, grapefruit. What else is orange?
Have we mentioned this yet on the podcast?
I don't know.
Do not tell me we've got to nearly 100 episodes and we haven't mentioned your fear of orange food.
Everyone point and laugh.
Do you like purple carrots?
Yeah, they're purple. They're not orange.
See, I find purple carrots weird.
Yeah, me too. Couldn't eat one of those.
No, I have got better with the whole orange food, but I don't like oranges.
Lots of foods are orange though, aren't they?
Yeah. I like...
Like curry.
I like... curry.
Do you not like curry?
No. It always looks like a plate of puke.
Fucking love curry, mate.
Hate it. I hate it.
Oh, I love curry.
And Ben, bless him, because Ben does all the cooking, so this is how I kind of got over my fear, because I didn't want to be...
Because he was like, fuck you and your weird obsession.
Yeah, eat your fucking carrot. Yeah, I'm still a bit... Oranges. I think it's because they're also called oranges, and they are orange. It's too much orange.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Oh, the drama. Anyway, that's all I had for That's Gross, because women are not gross.
Women are gross. I think we're just better at I think maybe we care more about hiding it.
Say one gross thing that you do, and I bet we all do it.
Well, I sniff the fluff from my toes.
We all pick our nose.
Yeah, sometimes you get that bogey, but it's so irritating. You've just got to get rid of it.
I mean, just clear out.
Yeah, but I don't... Is that gross?
I don't think it's... As long as you don't eat it.
What about... I don't necessarily do this. Maybe somebody I know does it.
A friend.
What about in the shower blowing your nose?
I've done that when I've been
before.
sick.
Yeah.
When I've been
I only really do it, I only really do it to decongest.
When you're like
my
poorly
nose.
and it like decongests and you're like,
Yeah. You're in the shower.
Yeah.
It gets washed away. Women are gross. I think we are just better at hiding it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Becky, my darling, it's you to go first.
Is it me to go first? Well then. Do you have any nice wholesome things to go on to the back of It's Gross to kind of give us a little palate cleanser?
My daughter's got a crush on a little boy, and she's really embarrassed when you talk about it. She's 6. Her sister's also got a crush. Her sister's 9. So they sleep in the same bedroom. So they natter at night about their crushes. It's very cute. And Maddie cannot keep a secret. She's my eldest, and she told me who my youngest has a crush on. So, you know, I teased her a little bit. Just a little bit, and she was fine about it, and it's a well-known thing now in the household that she's got this crush on a little boy. But now, as soon as you mention his name, she turns into an Italian mobster, and she goes, "Just shut up about it! Just shut up!"
So
I'm walking
funny.
here. Are you talking to me?
She's so funny. Just shut up about it. That's so funny.
Oh, bless her.
So 6-year-olds having crushes on 6-year-old little boys is very wholesome.
Oh, so cute. It is cute when they're little.
Just shut up.
Right. My story this week, if you're all ready, is about a man called John Meehan, or Meehan. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced.
Welcome to the show, John.
No, we don't like John.
Oh, John, fuck off.
Yeah.
Without John, we'd have nothing, though.
Okay, it's true. It's true.
Why?
Would there be no show?
I thought it was like a saying. Without John, we have nothing. I don't know. I just thought it was like a little religious thing or something. I was like, oh, okay.
Now I've got Whitney Houston in my head. I have nothing. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing.
If I don't have John.
John.
Oh, that was beautiful
John.
harmony, girls.
John.
No, John's a piece of shit. Right.
Yeah.
Piece of shit.
Just shut up about it.
Shut up about it. That's how John speaks now. Right, so my story this week is about a man called John Meehan, the real life Dirty John. Did any of you watch that?
No.
I did.
Right.
Never heard of it.
You'll know. You know the real life story, and then you can go and watch the series if you should like.
Good.
So John Meehan was born in February 1959, and he was raised in California with his 2 sisters. His father managed a casino in San Jose and taught John everything he knew about making a quick buck. Specializing in insurance fraud and a string of lawsuits against businesses and people, John became very adept at lying, cheating, and manipulating to get what he wanted, feeling no guilt in the process. Top guy. His father also instilled in him a very vindictive streak. According to his sisters, their father believed that no perceived insult should go unpunished. So the minute he sees that you've wronged him in some way, he's going to go out of his way to make your life a little bit more uncomfortable. His father believed that he should truly make people suffer, and to do that, you should target their family. There were rumours in John's family that they were related to the infamous crime boss, Albert Anastasia, who apparently is a mobster, or he was a mobster called the Mad Hatter. He was known in the 40s and 50s for his brutal revenge on his foes.
What?
Well, she said a mobster.
Just shut up about it.
I was waiting. I was like, someone's going to pop in a minute.
I was
and
like,
I saw, this is your line.
Now's your time to shine.
Shineth thou. Despite the lack of proof of the fact that rumour being true or not, John never denied it and kind of like encouraged that rumour to keep going round, because then when he threatened people, he could also threaten them with his supposed mob connections. When John was a teenager, his parents split up, and his sisters noticed a shift in his already cold, self-centred behaviour. He just became really angry and just didn't want anything to do with his parents. And as he grew older, his need and want for money led him to swindle almost everyone that he met. He was like a real hustler. He would just do whatever it took to get money. He would do insurance scams. He sued Taco Bell after mysteriously finding pieces of glass in his food.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And in the common insurance scam, he threw himself in front of a car to file a lawsuit against the driver.
It is brave doing that.
Shitty.
Like, I'm
not brave, stupid.
Yeah, but yeah, stupid. Brave's not the right word, but like that could go really wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen videos of people doing that? Where they're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
After high school, John began dabbling and dealing in drugs. He was arrested and convicted for selling cocaine, but was later released after testifying against his friend. Snitch!
Oh, give that man stitches.
Mm-hmm. In 1988, John graduated from the University of Arizona in Tucson. The following year, at 29, he moved to Ohio to attend the University of Dayton's law program. When he was at the university, John's housemates quickly discovered that he was not someone to be trusted, earning him the nickname Filthy John, which eventually morphed into Dirty John. This nickname would follow him everywhere. He gained this nickname for two reasons: his complete lack of guilt for the people that he hustled, and the sheer number of women that he brought home all the time. Just constant flow. He was very handsome.
Was he really handsome, or like for the time?
He was tall.
He was tall.
He was tall. Did he have dark hair?
He was tall. Yeah, he was handsome.
It's like when they talk about Ted Bundy being handsome and you see pictures, you're like,
really,
no.
No. He looks like a weird guy, the weird one in the office. I don't know.
He looks sleazy.
Ted Bundy, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, beauty standards change, so he might have been hotter back then. Apparently he was. He was handsome, 6'2", athlete build, and he also had like a silver tongue. He knew what to say to get women's attention and to...
We've all known men like that, haven't we?
Yeah, dirty dogs.
Dirty dogs.
However, he failed out in the second year, and his housemates didn't really miss him. So after his unsuccessful attempt at law school, John set his sights on something bigger. So without a job, a plan, or a place to go, he knew how to do something. That something turned out to be marriage. When John introduced himself to 25-year-old nurse Tonya Sells, he lied about his name, his age, and his occupation.
So everything.
He called himself...
Everything. Just lied about everything.
Just lied. Yeah. Oh, big things, not little things. So he called himself Jonathan, so he didn't go far from his proper name. His real name is John, it's not Jonathan. He claimed to be 26, although he actually was 31 at the time. And he said that he was a law student, despite having just failed out. Nevertheless, Tonya was instantly attracted to the charming, good-looking law student man. And on the 10th of November 1990, John and Tonya were married.
Oh, Tonya, sweetheart.
Sweet little baby girl. So John and Tonya were married at their family church in Dayton, Ohio. John didn't invite anyone from his family, explaining that his drug-addicted mother and his alcoholic father would ruin the ceremony for everyone. So I'm not going to invite any of my family because they're all toxic. He'd given her this massive story about how his parents were horrible, and why wouldn't she believe him?
Well, yeah.
However, some of his former law school buddies attended, and actually later on in their wedding video, you could hear them speaking in the background, you know, when the camera goes round the wedding, what we did in the 90s. you could actually hear them all laughing. So they say, hey, do you know what we used to call him? We used to call him Dirty John. You know, so we hear it on the tape. Nothing was put together until afterwards. So John and Tonya went on to have 2 little girls together shortly after their wedding. John told Tonya that he wanted to stop law school and become a nurse like her. So she was kind of surprised by this,
Bit of a
but
jump.
wanted to support him. Yeah. And she paid for his tuition at 2 different nursing schools. By the time his nursing career was established and taking off, he decided, well, I don't need to stay here anymore. So he moved on. He just told Tonya that he was leaving her and her daughter and fucked off.
Daughters.
Yeah, did I say daughter?
Yeah.
Daughters. Because up until this time as well, he was quite a present father as well for them. He wasn't just completely ignoring his children. He was there, but then he's just dropped them.
Piece of shit!
I know. A poor, devastated Tonya was just there with no answers. So she decided to contact his mother. As I mentioned earlier, John had always told Tonya never to contact his mother because of her supposed drug addiction.
Yeah.
But when a sweet-sounding lady answered the phone, it's not what Tonya was expecting. Not after the terrible things that John had said about her. And that's when things started to become clear. She said, "Oh, Tonya, I knew that you would call me one day."
Oh, no.
Oh. She told Tonya everything, all the details, the trouble in the past. And she also told him his real age. He's 5 years older than what he was saying. And his real name as well, because he wasn't called Jonathan, he was called John. The most horrifying part of what she told Tonya was that their family actually suspected John of having a hand in his father's death. His father was in hospital for cancer treatment, and near the end, John was left alone with him for a few minutes, and when his sister returned to the room, his father was dead. I mean, there's no proof there, but he was kind of okay, and then she left the room for a few minutes, and then he was like, oh, he died.
Yeah, that is somewhat suspicious.
But because of the cancer and it being terminal, there was no autopsy performed, so no immediate evidence of foul play. But the family always suspected.
But they know, doctors and nurses know when they're about to die.
Yeah, you don't just die.
I don't think the family said, oh my God, you've killed him there and then. But I think they've always had their suspicions.
Yeah, it was in the back of their heads.
Yeah. So after all of that, Tonya's concern, turned to complete fear because he was still living there. He was just saying that, he wanted to leave her and stuff. They were still at home. So she went through all of his stuff and she found a wooden box full of the stash of drugs that he's been stealing from the hospital. Drugs he'd taken from his patients, and some of them contained the drug fentanyl. So that's a bad one.
It's a baddie.
Is that the one that people can overdose through their skin? Is that fentanyl? I don't know enough about drugs.
No, I must admit, I don't know.
Is it not like a painkiller, but a strong one?
No idea.
Yeah, I think so.
I've seen videos of police seizing drugs, and then the police woman, this video was, fell on the floor and started seizing, and she was having an overdose.
Yeah, that was fentanyl, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but they had to give her that injection that brings people back from an overdose, and she'd literally just touched the stuff.
Yeah, so it's a synthetic opioid.
Yeah. So in September 2000, Tonya contacted authorities to report John for stealing all the drugs, for a start, because, they opened an investigation and the rumour spread, it was gone, that John was doing this, and so he'd eventually lose his job at the hospital. Then he left Tonya and the children, moved to Indiana, but he was fired again from that job not long after, when the new hospital also became suspicious that he was stealing drugs. Feeling that Tonya had wronged him, he started threatening her and sending horrible messages. saying that she shouldn't have crossed him.
Well, you shouldn't be a prick.
Yeah, John was arrested and charged with malicious and threatening behaviour. He was also eventually released on a suspended sentence, and during the investigation into the drug charges, they found out that John had also supplied the drugs that killed his 44-year-old brother because he died of an overdose. So was that on purpose? I don't know. So although no charges were filed in connection with his brother's death, John was ultimately charged with stealing the drugs in 2002, and he pled guilty and was ordered into a rehab program. But he decided to skip town, not doing that. I just don't think he thinks the law applies to him.
Sorry, so how old is he in 2002? Because he was born in 1959, right? So he's not like a young man in 2002.
He's not a young skipper, no.
40. Oh, hang on.
Let's
42.
Count. 42.
No, shut up.
2002 is a long time ago now.
Yeah.
I think that's why we forget, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's not in his 20s. He is in his 40s. Well, I suppose 40s, though. It's still not that old, is it? So.
Not old at all, babe. Some of our bestest friends are in their 40s.
I know that. But I mean to be like making the women melt like what he used to.
Listen, babe, I'm waiting for them 40-year-old men to get divorced, so...
Not John, though. Let's leave John where he is.
Not John.
So yeah, he decided to not go to rehab, even though it was court-ordered, and decided to skip town. Eventually, John was found by police in a Michigan hotel room with more stolen narcotics, barely able to speak after days of binging.
I feel like he's a slow learner. We're not learning.
I don't think it's that. I just think he doesn't think that. He thinks that he's smarter than everyone else, and he doesn't think that people can tell him what to do.
I don't mean like he's got a learning disability. I just feel like, come on, learn from your mistakes. Like, stop doing the same shit over and over and over again.
No, John doesn't do that. So this part is like a film, right? So on the way to the hospital, he's in the ambulance, right? Drugged up. He managed to remove his wrist and ankle restraints, jumped up off the trolley thing in the ambulance, grabbed whatever drugs he could find, and jumped out the back of the ambulance.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no.
I know, like a film. He ran across the road to a nearby shop where he assaulted a police officer, a security officer even, while attempted to escape through the elevator shaft. In his attempt to flee, of course...
This man's crazy.
I know. He fell down the elevator shaft and knocked himself out. He wasn't dead. No, luckily, maybe not. He was arrested again and then went to hospital, and then eventually he was sentenced to 1.5 years in jail. John was released in 2004 and he moved in with his sister. His sister would later say that almost the minute, that night, when he got to her house, he was on the computer creating dating profiles yet again. So, not learning.
Not learning, no.
No. He actually lived off his sister for as long as he could, and when his sister decided to move back to California, John went along eager to continue living off her, but she would eventually take a court order to, evict him away from her and scare him off.
Wow.
In October 2014, so we're getting quite recent now.
Yeah.
Yeah. John met Deborah Newell through, again, a dating website. Deborah was a bit like, he's quite good looking. They had a little chat, and he was supposed to be a doctor now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's not a nurse anymore. He's a doctor. He told her that he'd spent 1 year on assignment overseas, on the Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said that he was religious, a divorced father of 2, with an estate in upstate California. So he said that he owns multiple houses and he rents them out.
And he's a humanitarian as well. So
yeah, he's all these great things. I think he worked in Iraq.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, they had a great meal. After dinner, they returned to her place. Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge.
For coffee.
Took the party. But Deborah is no hussy. And after trying to put the charming gentleman out for the night, even though he'd impressed her all evening, when she asked him, I'm off to bed, would you please leave? He refused to leave.
What a creep.
He couldn't understand why she wouldn't want to sleep with him and wouldn't want to keep him in her house.
Oh, it's cringy.
Horrible. After a brief argument, John finally left. Deborah, bless her, was like, for fuck's sake, what the hell? Oh, dating is terrible. Deborah was a 59-year-old successful business owner. She had children that had grown up. So she just assumed this was just another bad day in a series of recent disappointments. She thought it had gone great until the end, so it was a shame. But when John called her the next day to apologise for his behaviour, she quickly forgave him. Things progressed rapidly from there. After a few more dates, John was professing his love for her and even suggested they get married. Red flag, love bomb, love bombing. We have words for this now. So actually he moved in pretty quickly. They moved into her quite an expensive rental house in Newport Beach that Deborah was paying for, of course.
Of course she was.
And she was the only one that put her name on the lease as well.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think so. But John had an excuse for everything, saying that signing the lease would create some sort of issue somewhere complicated with the IRS. What's the IRS?
Taxes and tax.
Is it tax? Is that what
America,
it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was something like that, but I wasn't sure if it was something to do with childcare. So whether when you put your name on a lease in America, you have to divulge your criminal history.
Yeah, probably.
Especially if it's an expensive.
Don't know if I don't have a criminal record, so, but I don't know if that's a question.
Did I tell you that I had to give my record into work? You know, because it got a lot of people's information. And they were like, oh, yeah, we were supposed to look at your criminal history. And I was like, well, I assumed you just got it because I've been working here for 2 years. And they were like, no, in France, you have to ask for it and give it to us. I was like, okay, then. So you have to do it for a website. But because I'm English, it takes a lot longer because I have to go back to England, make sure I didn't do anything of that. It took about 5 days longer than what it normally would. And I was like, God, have I forgotten about some bank heist that I did at one point? I was panicking. I was like, am I a criminal and have I forgotten? But obviously no, it came back fine. But I was so stressed. I was like, happens if I've got a twin, some sort of like doppelganger. Anyway, hours of sleep was lost, but it was all fine in the end. Anyway, so back to this story. Deborah, bless her heart, there was a mountain of red flags there. And because she was kind of falling head over heels for John, she was just ignoring a lot of them. He did things like ask lots of questions about her finances and about her high-priced fashion items that she had and the contents of her safe. Eventually, she'd actually discovered that he wasn't a doctor, but a nurse, but he managed to somehow explain that away, saying that he's a qualified doctor, but he's chosen to be a nurse.
Of course.
I mean, Deborah isn't a silly woman. She's a business owner. You know, she's winning at life. I just think the manipulation is strong.
Yeah. And when you love someone, you want to believe what they're saying.
Yeah. And she wanted her little happy ever after, I think, you know.
Of course she did.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Wanted to settle down, have fun with a 6'2" sexy man. So, in early December 2014, less than 2 months after their first date, John and Deborah went to Las Vegas. And John turned to Deborah and said, "Hey, baby, I think I want to marry you."
After 2 months, that's fucking crazy.
Mental.
Regardless of the story, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I think I want to marry you. But Deborah knew this was crazy, said yes. They had the wedding in Vegas. shotgun wedding. And she didn't even invite her kids because she knew...
A shotgun wedding is if you're pregnant, isn't it?
I just thought it was a quick wedding.
I think it's if you're pregnant.
Oh, well. I'll undo the shotgun. I just thought it meant, like, in, out, shake it all about.
No, I think it's referring to the father of the bride saying, you'll marry my daughter or I'll bust a cap in your ass.
Ah! Like that, see? Learn something new every day. I don't know things.
Cara Beth, if I'm wrong, do correct us.
Yeah. So, I think Deborah has 4 children, but it's 2 girls, Jacqueline and Tara, that are a little bit more, they live closer to their mum, so they're a little bit more involved in her dating life, and they were well aware that she's not the best at choosing men, like they always seem to be dickheads in the end. So they were well aware of their mother's tendency to attract the wrong type of man. John made no effort to get to know Deborah's children. He avoided their basic questions. He was distant and cold. He spent most of his time playing video games on their large TV that Deborah had bought for him. He also didn't have a car, so he had to borrow one of Deborah's cars. The children still thought he was a doctor. Despite being a doctor, he couldn't afford his own car. Her daughters expressed their concerns to their mother whenever they could, but she just dismissed everything that they said. John kept saying to Deborah that the children are spoiled and only interested in their inheritance. He insisted that they were just trying to keep them apart, portraying himself as a victim. Poor John.
Oh, the dumbs.
Deborah was just in love and almost like in a trance when her money started to disappear. She was oblivious that it'd been John, so when her money did start to disappear, she would just ask her daughters if they'd been round and taken it, never suspecting John.
Of course. He would never.
Never. So her daughters were actually genuinely scared for her safety at this point and started their own investigation. Let's have a clap for the daughters.
Well done.
Awesome. One of the girls placed a GPS tracker in her mother's car, the one that John frequently uses. They wanted to know where he went, compared to where he claimed to be going. The data showed him driving to the hospitals and clinics, but only staying long enough to pick something up. Never long enough for the surgeries that apparently he's supposed to be performing all day. Deborah's family hired a private investigator to delve into John's past. They quickly discovered his dark history. He was a criminal who had spent time in prison. He had never served overseas with Doctors Without Borders, as he had claimed. None of his boasts or any of his achievements were true. Deborah's family presented the findings to her, hoping to convince her that John was not who he claimed to be, but shockingly, she just didn't believe them. John was confronted by Deborah's daughters, but he had an answer for everything. And eventually their meddling sent him into a rage. He started telling the family to back off or he would call the police. He insisted that he and Deborah didn't want any of them around, so he was trying to isolate Deborah.
Yeah.
John eventually threatened them, saying accidents could happen if you showed up to our house.
Oh, John.
Wanker. Deborah didn't hear any of that, though. He never said anything like that in front of Deborah.
Obviously.
And then he selfishly revealed that he and Deborah had actually gotten married, news that was devastating to the girls, who had been warning Deborah all along.
Oh, bless their hearts. Can you imagine knowing that your mum's married to an absolute piece of shit?
I know. And just not listening to you, be like, Mom! You just want to shake her.
Yeah. Snap out of it.
He was so manipulative. He just got in her head. It wasn't until Deborah read a letter that was addressed to John that her eyes were finally opened. The writer claimed to be a former prison mate of John's, reaching out to catch up. The letter caused Deborah to finally have doubts. She began going through John's personal things and found a stack of documents exposing the true extent of her supposedly perfect man's not-so-charming side. So John Meehan, Dirty John, had spent the years before meeting Deborah stealing, assaulting and blackmailing women like her. Women that he'd met through dating sites, claiming to be a successful doctor with an exciting life story. In the paperwork Deborah found, it revealed that several women had pressed charges against him for sextortion, using sex against them, I think, embezzlement and abuse. He had multiple restraining orders from at least 6 different women. She even discovered several websites that were designed to warn other women about dangerous men, where the name Dirty John kept popping up. So multiple women were talking about him on random forums. John had actually been in jail in 2014 after pleading guilty to harassment and stalking. When he was released several months later, he was sent back to jail for harassing another woman who had a restraining order against him. When he was out of jail later that year in 2014, in the October, that's when he met Deborah, which was just a few days after his release. So again, he's straight out of prison, straight back on dating sites. He's straight back into it.
Yeah.
The documents also revealed a very disturbing side of John. During the investigation into the harassment charges, police discovered a storage unit belonging to him that contained what's described as a murder kit. Additionally, a former jailmate also told authorities that John had tried to hire someone to kill several people that had wronged him, but they would never officially go on the record. So he wasn't charged for that.
So he really, really, really is a wrong un.
He's a piece of shit. Yeah. Deborah was now completely terrified of the man that she had let into her life. Less than a year and a half since they married, after finding all this, she grabbed as much cash and clothes as she could and left their house. A month later, she'd filed for divorce. And when that happened, John became increasingly aggressive and threatening towards her and her family. And he even threatened her business, threatening to contact her customers and ruin her professional reputation. So Deborah joined the list of women to file a restraining order against John. At the time, she was unaware that the nursing board had declared John a danger to the public, or that authorities had actually found cyanide in the murder kit that they'd found in the storage unit. So she'd got through a lot of the paperwork, but those were the things that she didn't know at the time.
So it's a proper murder kit.
Yeah.
He's got the stuff.
You can't have cyanide and explain that away.
No.
No. Well, I mean, I don't.
I do not have cyanide.
Yeah. So poor Deborah, because John was being so terrible to her and so threatening, actually had to go on the run, moving around, not staying somewhere for very long, actually wearing disguises for over a year. But then in June 2016, her car disappeared. It actually was John who had stolen the car. He drove it away and poured gasoline all over it and set it on fire. So he set her car on fire.
What a dickhead. What an absolute awful human.
Yeah. So he would be found on CCTV later on, proof that it was him, but not straight away. And on the night of the 19th of August, a family member spotted John outside the apartment building where Deborah was staying. Fearing for everyone's safety, they reached out to Tara, which is Deborah's youngest daughter, because she lived nearby. Tara had hated John from the moment that they met, and she was actually the most outspoken about it at the time. So what Tara did was decide to come over to her mum's apartment to see if she can help her. John, who had actually brought his murder kit with him, so duct tape, restraints, all the murder kit stuff, knife. He saw Tara from afar and decided to intercept her. Tara was a small lady. They said that I think she was 5 foot something, and she weighed 50 pounds less than John, compared to him 6'2" and quite stocky.
Yeah.
So he decided to intercept her, and that's when he started punching her and pushing her to the floor. But Tara was actually a huge fan of the TV show The Walking Dead. Okay. And especially the scenes where the survivors fought for their lives against zombies. So she knew that she needed to defend herself. What do? You go for the head. Destroy the brain.
Oh, Tara, go on, girl.
Yeah.
Go on, girl.
So she actually managed to somehow get the upper hand on John after he started attacking her. And she managed to pick up the knife that he dropped on the floor, and she starts stabbing him And then she eventually managed to stab him in the head and then gets him in the eye and pushes the knife as far in as it would go. That's when he stopped attacking her and he fell to the floor.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And the police ran the ambulance. He started convulsing on the floor.
Tara was ready for this zombie apocalypse. She was.
Yeah.
She went in.
She went in. She was ready. When he's surprised, a lot of people are like, you know, it takes a little while to get over the shock of the surprise.
Yeah, of what's happening.
So she did that and then managed to get a knife off a man who was attacking her and stab him in the eye. Bloody woman. Brilliant. So, as Deborah and John are still married, when John is in a coma and on life support, you could just decide to pull the plug. So that's what she did. Pulled the plug on that bitch.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
She's a legend.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so John, he was declared most likely brain dead after having a knife plunged into his brain. 4 days after the attack, he was pronounced brain dead. Deborah was like, yeah, let's pull this plug. Book. Almost wanted to pull it out of the wall herself. So on the 24th of August 2016, he was pronounced dead and he was cremated on the same day. No ceremony. Fuck you. And what police later determined was an obvious case of self-defense. No charges were ever laid against Tara Newell.
Oh God, that didn't even cross my mind, but yeah, good job.
Well done, her.
So no charges were filed against her for what she described as her zombie kill. Oh.
What a badass.
Yeah, I watched like a little documentary about it and you could hear Tara like describing the attack and how that she loves The Walking Dead and she's just lovely. So yeah, they're all just, now John's dead, they're all just living their best life, occasionally doing interviews about it, but I couldn't find whether Deborah had moved on and found anyone else, but whether she'd be completely,
you'd be traumatized. You'd be like,
can't imagine you'd ever look at a man again.
Yeah, but that is the story of John Meehan, so Dirty John, the real life.
Thank you, Becky. That was lovely.
Thanks, Bex. That was a roller coaster.
I am glad he's dead.
I loved the end when you were just like, and she's still married to him, and that's it. So she pulled the plug and bye.
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 Yeah,
End of.
yeah.
Loved it. Loved it. He got what he deserved. Piece of shit.
Yeah.
Hello friends, are you feeling down? Do you need a pick-me-up? Well, look no further, for I have the solution. Just go to your nearest podcast store and pick up a box of Backlook Cinema, the podcast. That's right, folks. Backlook Cinema, the podcast, will cure what ails you. The sweet, smooth, and gentle chit-chat of the movies of yesteryear will fulfill your aching nostalgia and improve your overall well-being. The soothing sounds of your host, Zoe Richardson, talking about your favorite moments of these classic films is guaranteed to lift your spirits. The behind-the-scenes trivia that you'll learn will fill you with awe and wonderment. Don't hesitate. Try Backlook Cinema, the podcast, now with no artificial flavors or colors.
Warning, the aforementioned claims of improved well-being or as a cure to any ailment cannot be substantiated.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so my story this week, we're back to some proper spooky stuff. And this is a story I found in the book that I've been reading called The Dark Sacrament. And it's true stories about modern day exorcism.
Ooh.
Well, that's exciting,
yes, nice
isn't
bit of
it?
light reading. It's by David Kelly and Christina McKenna.
Welcome
Hi, guys.
to the podcast.
Of course, the story has been put in my own words. I haven't just done a copy-paste.
Well, I didn't either. Stop saying that.
No, but no, I didn't mean that. But because I said this is a story I found in a book, I don't want people thinking I'm just reading it from the book.
It was a dog.
In the spring of 2004, so our stories are both pretty recent.
Oh, yes.
A 10-year-old, Garry Lyttle, and that's not his real name.
Gary. Tash, your moment. Gary.
He's back.
Gary.
Got her.
Got her.
Hello, got her.
And his brother Stuart, listen. Stuart.
Have you two finished?
So I can't help it. I'm just...
So it's not his real name, obviously trying to protect his identity. He was making his way home from school in a little town of County Donegal in Ireland. So it's Irish accents from now on, ladies.
Oh, potato. I am out. Potato! To be sure, to be sure.
Wait a minute, is it Southern or Northern Ireland?
I've no idea.
Because it changes the accent.
Can you do both?
A little bit. Not really. Which one can you do, Tash?
No.
All right.
I don't know the difference between them.
Oh, the Southern is like all cheery, like, oh, hello. Potato. And then the Northern, oh. And up north, they're all a bit depressed. They're like, I'm absolutely ecstatic. Like that.
I won't be trying to do those accents.
That sounded horrible.
No, we're like, no, I go, it's all right. I think Irish is a really sexy accent. Like, if a bloke has an Irish...
so nice.
So sexy.
At work, our Irish customers are so lovely. And they just make me smile so much. And one of them actually sent me a box of chocolate once. So happy.
Oh, it's because you're so lovely, darling.
As sweet as a box of chocolates. Go on, tell us more, young child.
His town was a quiet place, very safe, never any serious crimes, and by all accounts, a nice place to live. If not maybe a bit boring for a young boy. He took the same shortcut he always did, going under a bridge and walking along the river. Many people use this path, other school kids and the occasional couple looking for a quiet place to have some alone time.
Mm-hmm. Nudge, nudge. Finger behind the football field.
Fuck off. This time, however, Garry got a weird need to leave his usual route and go and inspect a sandy area covered in weeds. Upon a closer look, his hopes for hidden treasure were soon dashed, as all he saw was an obvious illegal dumping ground for people's unwanted rubbish.
Oh, I bet he huffed at that. Look at them.
Yeah.
Buggers.
Scum.
Scum.
It looked like someone had tried to bury the bundle and that someone else had tried to dig it back up. He began to turn back to rejoin his usual way home when something caught his eye. A rectangular piece of wood was sticking out of the dirt. He thought maybe it could be a board game of some sort, but on better inspection he knew immediately what it was.
It's Jumanji!
I was like that. Jumanji.
He knew immediately what it was. He recognised it from the films he'd watched. It had all the letters of the alphabet, all the numbers up to 9, the word yes and no, pictures of a sun and moon, and the word goodbye at the bottom engraved into the wood. He had found a Ouija board.
How creepy.
He was extremely excited at this find, thinking how old the board looked and what a cool object to find it was.
Don't touch.
He's touching it. He's touching it. He's quickly pulling it out of the ground. And as he did, another small object flew out with it. But instead of just falling to the ground, it floated in midair before gently making its way back to the board. It was the planchette used with the Ouija board. He began to clear all the mud and dirt away from the board and the planchette in the hopes of putting it in his bag to bring home. He glanced around him. All his fellow classmates had now gone home, and he was all alone with the board. As he was staring at it, he began to feel the earth move beneath him, and he heard distinct cries of moaning, men and women chanting something that sounded like Bim-I-R. Bim-I-R.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Kumbaya.
I think it might be the satanic version of that.
Oh, it's such a lovely song. Why do you have to spoil it with Satan?
Understandably scared, Garry tried to stand up and run away, but he was instantly pushed back down to the ground. In front of him, the floor began to open up. As he sat staring down at this underground cave that had opened, he saw a figure sat on a throne, and all around him were winged creatures, hundreds of them, all staring right back at him. Then, without warning, they took flight, heading straight for him. Garry then came out of his vision or trance or whatever the heck had just happened, and everything was back to normal. No open cave, no screaming voices, and most importantly, no flying demons attacking him. Terrified, he grabbed his bag and ran home, supposedly leaving the Ouija board behind. When he got home, he ran straight upstairs, obviously very upset. When he came back down about 30 minutes later, his mum, Jessica, asked him what was wrong. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. She suspected he'd been in a fight with another boy at school. It wouldn't have been the first time. But he replied, saying everything was fine and he was just going to do his homework. Jessica, knowing that she wasn't going to get anywhere, let him go. But as he went to go upstairs, she heard him scream. A scream so utterly filled with terror that her heart sank with a genuine sense of dread. It didn't even sound like Garry. She had never heard a sound like it come from her beloved little boy. She ran to see what had happened and found him stood on the staircase, staring towards the top at, as far as she could see, nothing. She called out to him as he stood transfixed and open-mouthed, but he didn't reply. Beginning to panic, she called out again, and this time he just shook his head, but didn't say a word. His 8-year-old sister Kelly had joined her mum at the foot of the stairs and began to giggle at her brother's strange behaviour. As soon as Garry heard her laughing at him, he turned and stared at her with such a look of absolute hatred and contempt that Jessica hardly recognised him. Aww. It was such an evil expression, she found it hard to believe that it was on her lovely son's face. And he was lovely. He was well-mannered, never caused any problems for her. He was well-liked by teachers, never kept bad company, and was looking like he would turn out to be a nice, handsome young man. In fact, Jessica was extremely proud of him, and so to see him so full of what can only be described as pure rage was extremely unsettling. Aww. She grabbed Kelly and they both dashed away from Garry. He'd frightened them both. The family soon fell back into its usual habits, and Garry's behaviour was back to normal. So much so that his mum had almost forgotten about the staircase incident altogether. That is, until a week later when she heard Garry telling his sister to get the fuck out of his room, and then Kelly screaming out in pain from upstairs. She rushed to see what had happened. Kelly stood outside of the room holding her arm. She explained to her mother between tearful gasps that Garry had twisted her arm. Jessica was in disbelief. Not only had she never heard her son swear, but he'd never laid a hand on his baby sister. The two actually got on incredibly well. Garry explained that Kelly had been annoying him, but he was still made to apologise and say that he would never do it again. But as you can guess, he did do it again. 2 days later, he punched Kelly so hard in the face she almost lost a few of the baby teeth that she had left. Jessica was furious and did something she had never done. She slapped her son hard across the face. As he turned to look back at her, his eyes brimming with anger, they almost looked completely black. He raised his fist as if he was going to go and punch his own mother. Jessica found herself being afraid of her own child. This feeling was utterly alien to her. As she braced for the punch, Garry just seemed to snap out of it and lowered his fist and seemed to be back to his normal self. The next morning, whilst having breakfast, Garry fell off the kitchen stool onto the hard tiled floor and began seizing. His mum ran over to him and held his head. Once the jerking had stopped, he laid completely rigid, his eyes glazed over, fixed onto something on the ceiling. Kelly was sent over to the neighbours who rang the doctor. He arrived a half an hour later, and Garry was still on the floor unresponsive. It was a bit baffling to the doctor, so he called the hospital and made sure a neurologist was there to be able to examine Garry straight away upon arrival. The boy had every test you can think of and everything came back normal. His brain was fine, his heart was strong, his blood sugar levels were normal. In short, they had no idea why Garry had had a seizure. Jessica was, of course, stricken with worry. She knew something was very wrong with her child. His behaviour had been so out of character, the violent outbursts, a weird trance-like state on the stairs, and now a seizure that no one could explain. He was to be kept off school for at least 2 weeks, and once he'd recovered from his ordeal, Jessica thought it was time that she and her son had a serious conversation. She tried to talk to him about what had happened on the stairs and in the kitchen, as the doctors assumed the two events were linked. But Garry remained tight-lipped. She then said Kelly told her that he had a new friend, and wanted to know if that was true. Garry glared at her. "Yes, but it's none of your business, and Kelly shouldn't have told you," he replied. Jessica continued to ask who was this boy, and if she knew him, fearing he might be a bad influence on her son. Garry told her it wasn't a boy, but a man. Jessica once more felt herself fill with dread. It was all over the news at the time that adults had been grooming children. It was a massive child abuse scandal. She asked for the man's name. "Tyrannus," said Garry. And then everything began pouring out as if Garry could no longer keep his secret. He told his mum about everything. The opening at the river, Tyrannus on the throne, how it had been him he had seen at the top of the stairs. He said he looked like the devil, except it wasn't the devil. Garry described him as being big, 10 times as big as himself. Jessica stared at her son in utter disbelief. This is not the way she'd expected the conversation to go at all. He continued to explain that he'd found a ouija board, and he'd summoned Tyrannus, and that he had followed the boy home. When he had seen him at the top of the stairs, he explained that he was covered in dirt and rotting stuff, that he had open wounds all over his body, and that he was laughing. Jessica cut him off. She didn't want to listen to any more of what she considered to be nonsense. She told him he'd been watching too many horror films and that he shouldn't watch any more. He tried to convince her, but it was all too much to accept. This was surely just a result of a young boy's overactive imagination. When Garry went back to school, his behaviour had changed even more drastically. It was like he was a completely different person. He bullied his classmates, he was really disrespectful to his teachers, and swore constantly. She even began to blame herself. Had she messed up somehow? Was this all her fault? The week after, Garry was home late from school. She was worried, obviously, but at this point extremely annoyed too. When asked where he'd been when he eventually returned home, he just shrugged her off and mumbled that he'd been playing down the river. She tried getting more information, but he began to swear at her and started fighting with Kelly for no reason at all. Eventually he calmed down, but had still not really admitted to what he'd been doing by the river all that time. Jessica popped upstairs to clean the bathroom when she heard her daughter screaming for her. She rushed down to find Garry in the same unresponsive state as that day in the kitchen. His lips were blue, his body stiff and totally unresponsive. The doctor was once more called out, who in turn rang the neurologist, who said that because all his tests were normal, that there really was nothing more that he could do. The doctor then suggested maybe taking Garry to see a psychiatrist. It was probably all due to a surge in hormones before puberty hit, and that Jessica should try not to worry about it. That made me so she's going to be, it's just hormones.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going to worry about.
It's all the testosterone just making him see things.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about blue lips or anything. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all right.
He began to see a plethora of different specialists in mental health, and it seemingly began to work. Garry began acting like himself again, but it didn't last. That spring, so a whole year after the beginning of the story, Jessica got a call from Garry's school saying he'd had some kind of an episode and that she should come as soon as possible. And that same week he had another seizure. This seizure was witnessed by Carmel, the neighbour who had been looking after him whilst his mother had gone to do some shopping. Once the doctor had left, Carmel told Jessica that she should seek the help of a priest, that Garry was unclean somehow and touched by evil. Jessica was repelled by what had just come out of her friend's mouth. Unclean? Evil? Was she joking? She knew Carmel was extremely religious, but she'd never once tried to push her beliefs on anyone else this way. She said that there was no way she was taking him to their local priest. She didn't like him, and she knew Garry would refuse to go anyway. But Carmel insisted. She said she knew a man, a kind gentleman, that lived in a monastery. He was a healer. Jessica continued to fervently defend her son. A healer, she asked, like a witch doctor or a shaman? Carmel shook her head. No, nothing like that. You're like Father Dominic. She then rightly said, what have you got to lose? Jessica thought for a second, and she was right. At this point, there wasn't anything left to lose. And she would do anything to help her son, just like any mother would. And so she hesitantly agreed. Carmel made the appointment for the same day, and Jessica and Garry set off for the 2-hour drive to the monastery. Once inside the large, echoey building, they sat in a room with Father Dominic, who was all that Carmel had said. He was kind and respectful, and he smiled a lot. He asked about what had happened to Garry, and to her surprise, Garry began retelling everything in detail, even saying things that he had not admitted to his mother. He said he'd been seeing things at night, black things that changed shape, and that he could hear noises coming from all over the house like animals, only they didn't have any pets. He said that Tyrannus had told him how successful he would be when he grew up if he did what he wanted. He had showed Garry a vision of himself in a big office with a desk and told him he'd be very rich if he came over to him. Father Dominic took in every word, not interrupting Garry once. After he'd finished his story, Father Dominic took out a relic and pressed it into Garry's hands while saying a prayer. He then taught Garry a prayer that he must say at least twice a day. As they were leaving, the monk gently took Jessica's hand and said great evil was at work here, and that she must help her son to find God again. Otherwise he would lead a painful and hard existence. Jessica admitted her doubts about the matter. All she saw was her little boy struggling with something, no doubt, but evil? She saw no evil in her son. Father Dominic insisted that he had seen this before, and that she must guide him to pray every day and return to the monastery every 2 weeks. For a time, Jessica did help her son pray twice a day, and he did go to see Father Dominic once every fortnight, as well as keeping up with the therapy sessions, and he got better. As he got better, he began to pray less and less. And because Jessica was dubious about the whole demonic side of things at the best of times, she kind of let it slide. Big mistake. Sure enough, soon came the anxious cry of Kelly saying her brother was behaving strangely again. Jessica rushed up to see her son seated at his desk, staring off into the distance, scribbling furiously in his notebook with his left hand. He was right-handed. At first she couldn't make sense of it and tried removing his hand from the desk, but to her astonishment, she couldn't move her son's arm. It seemed to be made of stone. He continued scribbling, and soon the words became clearer. They were phrases of pure filth, things that she never imagined an 11-year-old boy would know. Disturbing, perverse sentences continued to pour out of him, and drawings too, symbols of the zodiac and 5-pointed stars. She'd had enough, and yanked Garry by the waist away from the desk, but to her and Kelly's horror, he remained in a seated position even when the chair was removed from below him, and his left hand was still furiously writing in mid-air. So can you picture what I'm saying? He basically just stayed rigid, as if the chair was still there, even though it wasn't there.
That's horrible, and I hate it.
Yeah.
That's horror film worthy.
I
mean, like...
No. After a few moments he collapsed and came to, knowing nothing of what had just occurred. Jessica grabbed the notebook and threw it into the fire. She never wanted to see those words again. She now knew that whoever had written that was not her son. Even the handwriting was not the same. It was far too artistic to be Garry's handwriting. I'm kind of gutted that we didn't get any examples of what he wrote, and that's just my morbid curiosity, but I want to know what he wrote, but we'll never know.
No.
Bad things. In the kitchen, Garry got that same glazed look, and she shook him to snap him out of it. He then stared at her with that twisted rage she knew so well now, and spat, "Fuck you," at her before running out of the house. Jessica decided to get in touch with a vicar to come and talk to her. He did and advised for an exorcism. She had been dreading that word. The vicar reassured her by saying that it didn't necessarily mean that Garry was possessed, but he was at least being controlled by an evil force, and that needed to be sent back to where it came from. He continued to say that he didn't have the experience to perform such an act, but that he knew a man that had performed it many times before, and that if anyone could help her son, it was him. William Lendrum accepted to help, and Jessica took Garry to him at the earliest opportunity. The exorcist found it hard to believe that this well-mannered, sweet boy could be the same child the vicar had told him about. That is, until he looked into Garry's eyes. Then he knew that he was not looking at a perfectly normal boy. He saw an old soul, even older than himself, and he was 82. It was dark and menacing. William Lendrum continued the interview without letting on what he'd just seen. Garry admitted that he was still using the Ouija board by the river at least twice a week.
Oh my
You
God,
need to
Garry.
wean yourself off the Ouija board, please. Let's get away.
Yeah. Asking questions that Tyrannus was whispering to him. Tyrannus had told him to stay away from churches and the Bible, saying it was all rubbish, and that he should listen to him, promising great things.
Suspicious. Almost as if something a demon would say.
Almost. Tyrannus had also apparently threatened Garry, saying that if he didn't do as he was told, he would make him feel so awful that he would want to kill himself. Canon Lendrum. So I had to look up canon, but it's a Christian title. It's just a religious person.
Okay.
Canon
Awesome.
Lendrum poo-pooed all that as if it was nothing.
Poo-poo.
He poo-pooed it. Never mind what Tyrannus wants, he said. What do you want? Do you want to return to God? Garry just mumbled, I don't know. The canon then insisted that he could take all of Tyrannus's power over Garry away. The boy looked terrified at the idea and recoiled further into his chair. When Canon Lendrum asked why he looked so scared, he admitted that Tyrannus was laughing at him, and then Garry began shaking with laughter himself. Only it wasn't him. The demon was using the boy's voice to make fun of the canon's confidence. The canon explained that he could help, but he could not force Garry to choose Jesus. Eventually, Garry held the canon's hand and the two prayed to Jesus for help. Afterwards, William explained that this would not be enough, that Garry must take the vicar to the Ouija board and the two would burn it together. Garry promised that he would, but when the vicar went to the river with Garry, the Ouija board was nowhere to be found.
Oh no, well, we saw that coming, didn't we?
But it's like,
Where is it?
And Garry was not telling anyone where it was.
zip.
In 2007, Garry had become an entirely different person, and Jessica had pretty much given up on trying to find a solution. She had found religion herself and prayed for her son daily. His grandmother began experiencing paranormal happenings in her house after Garry had been staying with her. Dark shadows against the walls and strange noises and voices. This disturbed her so much that she herself underwent an exorcism with Canon Lendrum. When asked why he continued to use the Ouija board even though he knew the darkness it held, Garry simply replied, he was bored.
I mean, I can think of lots of better things to do than that.
Absolutely. He has a total and utter hatred of anything sacred. He suffers from depression and suicidal thoughts and regularly attacks those closest to him. Garry, sadly, seems to be happy in the company of his demon, Tyrannus. And that's it?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it?
He kept
Yep.
him.
Yep.
What are Garry and Tyrannus doing now?
They're still being possessed.
I don't know what to say. I was expecting...
Is this a cliffhanger?
No, that's the
Are
story.
you teasing me? Naughty, naughty.
Yeah.
Are you teasing?
No, that's it.
When the canon got involved, I expected it to go out with a bang.
That was terrible. See yourself out. See yourself out.
But you know what? Maybe Garry is just a bit of a dick.
Maybe Garry is schizophrenic.
Maybe, but either way, he's not gotten any better.
Yeah.
Sad for Garry.
Is it even humanly possible to sit down like you're sat on a chair?
Possibly when you know
if you've got a really good core, you
Yeah.
probably could.
I'm going to try.
I could...
I mean, babe, I don't think we're the people to try this.
Oh, you can. You can.
I don't. Yeah, but I don't know for how long you'd be able to sustain that position.
It depends how long he was waiting for someone to walk in.
No, my knee.
Yeah.
Oh, my thigh's burning.
Oh, my knee.
On my knee, on my knee.
Well, yeah. Sorry, Garry.
He
Thinking of
chose
you.
to stay with him.
Yeah, he just wouldn't let it go. I don't know. Too affected,
To invest,
No idea.
too, like, in it.
Yeah. But I thought it was an interesting one because usually, the priest comes and everything kicks off and then everything's okay. But nope.
And Garry was just like, this is who I am now, hun.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
I'm a demon now, bitch.
Well, there you go. That's the end of that. Well, thanks very much. No closure.
No closure. But a thought, how many people are actually out there that are possessed by demons just walking about?
That is what I kept thinking. You know, like these people that like get to the top and like...
Are they because...
You're like, how have you done that?
That is, and it did come up in the book, but it was a very good point. A 10-year-old boy describing what he's going to be, like, if he goes with his demon, he's going to get all this success and be massively rich. And he sees an image of himself in an office with a big desk with lots of money. When you're a little 10-year-old boy, if you're thinking success, you're thinking like, I'm going to be a
Fireman.
Fireman or
Pop
a
star.
pilot. You don't think of it. Yeah.
It would be interesting to know what Garry's doing now.
I don't think he's doing great, mate.
Maybe we all know who he is because he's a popular TV personality.
That's not what the vision said. He's
he's in Wall Street.
He's very depressed and suicidal, so
sad.
even if he has got tons of money, he's not great.
Oh, sad for Garry.
Yeah. But anyway, there you go, my darling. Shall we let the people go?
Let the people go.
Because this has been a long one.
Yeah, long episode.
Yeah, I'm really tired. I've been up since what feels like 5 o'clock.
To be fair, when we went bi-weekly, we did say they'd be longer.
Yeah, we did.
Long.
Well, thanks for listening. Remember, you can catch us at all the usual places. We look forward to hearing from you. If you've got any questions, you've got any comments, you want to join in the That's Gross segment, please do write to us.
100%. I will link all our social media and emails down in the episode description.
Yeah.
So, guys, stay safe.
Don't kill people.
Just shut up about it.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, my lover.
Goodbye, my friend.
Yeah, sorry for stuttering halfway through that, but
It's what you do. It's what you
that's
do,
what
my
I
love.
do. Words are hard.